There's something uniquely suffocating about moving into a suburban neighborhood with an HOA. The trimmed hedges, the overuse of beige, the friendly smiles that feel more like you're being scanned for imperfections. It's the kind of place where lawn height matters more than your actual name. I moved into Stonebridge Glade on a Thursday. Rented townhome, middle of the block. Nothing fancy, but quiet, clean, and close to work. The kind of place you pick when you want peace, not petty warfare. But peace? No. I had the misfortune of living directly across from Karen. And yes, her name was actually Karen. A woman so deep in the stereotype, she made satire look lazy. Cropped blonde bob, permanent sunglasses, wore yoga pants, never did yoga. HOA board member, self-appointed enforcer of all things community-friendly. She introduced herself before I even finished unloading the moving truck. "Hi, I'm Karen. I'm on the HOA board, so if you have any questions, I'm happy to help. Just want to make sure everyone keeps up our neighborhood standards. We like things done right around here." Translation: I will be watching you like a hawk on Adderall. I thanked her, smiled politely, then promptly ignored the flashing warning lights behind her teeth. I've been through worse than HOA princesses, or so I thought. Now, about my car. Nothing dramatic, just a regular silver Civic. Reliable, clean, doesn't leak oil. I park it where the lease says I can, the shared visitor spot right in front of my unit. My own reserved space was often blocked by a moving company or landscapers early on, so I parked in the shared spot, technically allowed for up to 48 hours. That's when it started. First night, car's there. Morning, gone. Towed. $325, and 3 hours later, I got it back from the lot. I thought it was some fluke, a misread on the plate or a miscommunication. I came back, checked the signage, nope, still within the allowed time. I was in the right. Second night, same thing. Towed. This time I was less patient. I called the HOA's parking management line. Voicemail. Left a message. Third night, I decided to test a theory. Parked my Civic again. Took a walk late, around 11:30 p.m. Sure enough, who did I see talking to the tow truck driver? Karen. Pajamas, coffee mug in hand, smirking. No clipboard, no authority, just smugly directing the guy like it was her divine HOA-given right. She saw me, didn't even flinch, just waved and said, "Oh, that spot's for visitors, not tenants. You should really read the bylaws." I grinned, nodded, went back inside. And in that moment, I knew what kind of game we were playing. This wasn't about parking, it was about control. Karen didn't tow my car because it was breaking a rule. She towed it because it made her feel powerful, and that was her first mistake. Over the next week, I did something that would make even the calmest Buddhist monk twitch. I parked in that spot every single night, and every morning, gone. I paid the fees, collected the receipts, noted the times. I even recorded Karen on my doorbell cam multiple times walking out at night, smug little grin pasted on like she just saved the neighborhood from moral collapse. What she didn't know was I had read the HOA bylaws cover to cover. And what she was doing wasn't just petty. It was illegal. See, an HOA can't have a resident towed without notice unless there's an emergency or obvious obstruction. And Karen thinks you're a nuisance isn't a legal emergency. At least not yet. But I wasn't going to go straight to the cops or the HOA board. No, that would be too easy. Karen wanted a game? I'd play. But I don't bluff. I burn. I spent the next week turning Karen's smug little parking war into a meticulously documented case study in HOA abuse. Every tow, I logged the date, time, towing company, and amount paid. Every night she directed the truck, captured on my doorbell cam, clear as day, her face lit by the street lamp, her lips moving in that self-important HOA committee way. I even called the towing company directly. "She said she's authorized?" I asked. "Yeah," the guy replied. "She calls us directly, says she's with the board. You want her to stop? Talk to the board." Oh, I planned to, just not the way they expected. I printed out the HOA bylaws, specifically Section 4.7.1 on parking enforcement, highlighted, annotated again, It said very clearly, residents may use shared visitor spots for up to 48 consecutive hours. Vehicles may only be towed with written notice or under emergency conditions. Authorization to tow must come from the HOA board, not a single member. Karen had been winging it, playing queen of the cul-de-sac without a crown. And the tow company? Complicit, whether they knew it or not. By week's end, I had 5 separate towing invoices, 5 violations, 5 counts of unauthorized removal, all backed by receipts, video evidence, and her own smug little voice on my camera saying I had it towed again. That phrase would age like milk in a courtroom. I waited for the next HOA meeting, public, recorded, the whole suburban theater production. You haven't lived until you've watched middle-aged adults debate over lawn edging policies like it's the UN Security Council. Karen was there, of course, sitting at the head of the folding table like she ran the place. Pearls, pastel sweater, clipboard clutched like a scepter. When they opened the floor to community concerns, I raised my hand. "Yeah, I've got a quick one," I said, polite, calm, like a man not dragging a loaded truth bomb into the room. The room turned. Karen smiled, tight and wary. "Go ahead," said the HOA president. I clicked the remote and started the slideshow. Slide 1, 5 towing invoices, all dated, all within legal parking time, all billed to me. Slide 2, HOA bylaws, section 4.7.1, highlighted, annotated. Slide 3, doorbell footage of Karen, mid-smirk, pointing at my car, talking to the driver. "This is Karen authorizing the tow trucks without proper notice," I explained, which, according to your own rules, is not only against policy, but opens both the HOA and the individual involved to liability. Karen's smile died somewhere between slide 2 and 3. She reached for her water bottle, missed, and tried to cover it with a cough. I looked right at her. "I've been documenting this for a week. I've lost over $1,600 to unauthorized towing. That's not counting the hours wasted or the legal fees I've already paid to have this reviewed." Murmurs rippled around the room. People who had never spoken more than a wave to me were now whispering, eyebrows raised. Then I dropped the closer. "My lawyer is preparing a formal complaint. But before we go that route, I figured I'd give the board a chance to handle this internally. Because this isn't enforcement, it's harassment." The president asked for a recess. Karen tried to speak, tried to blurt out something about miscommunication and intentions, but the tone had shifted. She wasn't a rule enforcer anymore. She was a liability. And no HOA board survives bad PR, especially the kind that hits Nextdoor and Facebook with keywords like harassment and legal action. 15 minutes later, they returned. The president cleared his throat, avoiding Karen's eyes. "Effective immediately, board members are not authorized to unilaterally request vehicle towing. We'll be revisiting enforcement protocols. Mr. Walker, your concerns are valid, and we'll be reimbursing your expenses." I nodded, calm, composed. Karen? She sat in silence, fists tight in her lap, lips drawn like she'd swallowed her tongue. It could have ended there. It didn't. Because here's the thing, I don't do half measures. She'd tried to control me, cost me money, waste my time, so I decided to take something from her in return. Not just her pride, her position, her influence, her perfect reputation. She just didn't know it yet. Karen avoided me after that meeting. No more waves, no more fake smiles. She even parked her own Lexus further down the block, like proximity to me might cause actual radiation poisoning. But here's the thing. Someone like Karen doesn't just slink away. Not for long. She was the type who didn't know how to exist without control, without dominance. And when you take away a tyrant's throne, they usually panic. So, while Karen scrambled to claw her way back into good standing, I moved to phase 2, the social kill shot. Now, I don't like to snoop, normally, but after being towed 5 nights in a row and watching $1,600 vanish from my account while Karen grinned like Cruella on espresso, I figured I'd earned a little sleuthing. And suburban gossip? It flows like wine at book club. I started casually chatting with a few neighbors, morning joggers, weekend gardeners, the mailman. It didn't take long before I hit gold. Turns out, Karen had a few cracks in her veneer. One neighbor, a woman named Sandy, spilled it all over coffee. "You didn't hear this from me," she whispered, which of course meant, "Please tell everyone, but Karen's not actually on the HOA board anymore." I blinked. "What do you mean?" "She was voted out months ago, missed 3 meetings in a row, broke confidentiality over a dispute, and they quietly removed her, but she still walks around like she's in charge." So, she wasn't just overstepping, she was faking authority, pretending to be a board member, then using that illusion to direct private property tows? Oh, that changed things. Because impersonating an HOA board member isn't just unethical. In our state, it's a criminal offense. So, I filed a quiet report with the property management company, not the HOA, not the community chat groups, the management company, the people who actually handle enforcement. And I attached all my documentation. 2 days later, they emailed me back. "We are investigating the incident. You are not the first resident to bring this to our attention." Ah, so the Ice Queen had enemies already. Perfect. Now came the part where I got creative. Karen still hosted the neighborhood's monthly community wine night on the 2nd Friday of each month. Her last remaining throne, hostess of the gossip table, judge and jury of Chardonnay-fueled suburban politics. So, I RSVP'd. I dressed well, brought a very nice bottle of Pinot Noir, way too nice for that crowd, and I waited until the room filled with half-tipsy homeowners exchanging the usual fake laugh stories about renovations and school pickups. Karen saw me enter and froze, but she couldn't say no. That would have looked weak. So she smiled, tight and fake, and waved me over. "Didn't expect to see you here," she said, eyes scanning the room for backup. "I figured we should start fresh," I replied, handing her the wine. "I'm big on second chances." She, forced a laugh, accepted the bottle, and the night rolled on. Until someone, Sandy again, bless her, brought up the towing. "Crazy stuff, huh? I heard someone's car got towed like 5 times. Karen tried to deflect. "Oh, it was just a misunderstanding. People don't always read the signs." So I smiled, took a sip, and said loud enough for the entire room, "Misunderstanding? I mean, you impersonated an HOA board member to authorize those tows, didn't you?" The room went dead silent. Karen's face lost all color. What are you talking about? You weren't even on the board at the time. That's impersonation. Illegal, actually. But I'm sure the property management company will clear it all up. They said they'd be reaching out soon." Gasps. Literal gasps. Someone dropped a cracker. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't look angry. I just sipped my wine and looked around like I was commenting on the weather. Karen stammered. That's not what happened. You don't understand." "Karen," I interrupted, "you've been lying to the entire neighborhood for months, pretending you had power. And the only reason I'm saying it now is because I've been nice about it. Too nice." No one said anything. Not a soul came to her defense. That night, Karen left her own party early. And when I walked out, neighbors actually thanked me. One even clapped me on the shoulder and said, "About time someone put her in her place." By Monday morning, Karen's name was scrubbed from the HOA contact list. Issued a formal apology and refunded all my towing fees, citing miscommunication and incorrect authority. The property management company? They sent a warning letter to Karen, stating that any further misrepresentation would result in legal action. I framed it. As for Karen, she stopped going outside much, skipped wine nights, started parking perfectly, almost comically so, never even close to the line. Her control over the neighborhood? Gone. Her reputation? Shattered. But I wasn't done just yet, because while she was busy licking her wounds, I was preparing one final move. Not just to humiliate her, to replace her. After the wine night debacle, Karen went into what I can only describe as suburban exile. Her morning power walks? Gone. Her passive-aggressive posts on the community app? Deleted. Even her once religious routine of patrolling the street with her smug little clipboard vanished like a cheap HOA sign in a windstorm. But here's the truth. In places like Stonebridge Glade, power doesn't disappear, it transfers, and the vacuum she left behind was screaming to be filled. So I stepped forward, quietly, strategically, not because I wanted power, because I wanted the HOA crown to sit exactly where it would hurt her most, on my head. I didn't run for the HOA board right away. That would have been too obvious. Instead, I became the guy everyone could trust, the reasonable one, the anti-Karen. I started helping neighbors with small things, helped fix a busted porch light, took in a few stray Amazon packages during the storm, even mowed part of Mrs. Bell's lawn when her mower died halfway through. Harmless gestures, but powerful currency in a neighborhood still reeling from Karen's reign of petty terror. Meanwhile, I quietly started attending all HOA meetings, sat in the back, took notes, asked good questions. Nothing flashy, just enough to be noticed. By the third meeting, I had people coming up to me before it started saying things like, "You should really consider running. We need someone level-headed." Oh, I considered it. It didn't take long for Karen to catch on. I imagine she sat behind those expensive curtains, watching me walk across driveways, chatting up neighbors, shaking hands like I was running for mayor of middle-class Nowheresville. And then, like clockwork, she tried to crawl back into relevance. She posted a passive-aggressive rant on the community forum about people exploiting board vacancies for personal agendas. It was clearly about me. She even threw in a not-so-subtle line about how some renters shouldn't be allowed to run for the board, which was adorable, considering the bylaws didn't prohibit renters from holding office, just required they attend a certain number of meetings and get community nomination, both of which I had already met. So I responded publicly, professionally, "Hi Karen, appreciate your concern. Just to clarify, the bylaws state that any resident who meets the attendance requirements is eligible. But, if you have documentation stating otherwise, feel free to share it with the board." She didn't respond. The silence was delicious. A month later, it happened. HOA election season. 2 seats open. 5 nominees. I was one of them. Karen, of course, made a last-ditch effort to submit her candidacy, but the board rejected it, formally. She was still under investigation from the management company, and they weren't going to risk another scandal. On voting day, the community center was more crowded than usual. People brought snacks. Kids played on the grass outside. It felt like a block party, but with ballots. I didn't campaign hard, didn't need to. All I did was thank people for their time, shake hands, and hand out flyers with 3 short promises. First of all, no more towing without due process. Secondly, transparent board decisions. Thirdly, zero tolerance for HOA harassment. Simple, effective, anti-Karen. By the end of the week, the votes were counted. I won by a landslide. The following Saturday, I took my official seat on the HOA board. Karen didn't show up to the meeting, but her husband did. He sat in the back, arms crossed, watching as I signed the official documents with a pen that probably cost less than her wine glass, but wielded far more power. And in the public Q&A portion, someone actually asked, "Whatever happened with that towing situation last month?" I answered plainly, and quote, "The board has reviewed the case. That individual is no longer associated with HOA enforcement, and safeguards are now in place to prevent any future abuse of authority." Unquote. I didn't name her. I didn't need to. Her name hung in the air, like smoke after a house fire. Unseen, but impossible to ignore. The first thing I did as board member had the towing policy rewritten, clear, documented, with strict penalties for unauthorized calls. Second, removed Karen's name from all lingering community roles. She didn't host events anymore. No more newsletters. No more committee chairs. She was officially just another resident. And the crown she'd worn so proudly now sat atop the man she tried to humiliate. Me. And the beauty of it? She couldn't do a damn thing about it. By the time autumn rolled in, the neighborhood had changed. The grass was still regulation length, the hedges still neurotically trimmed, and the mail still arrived with robotic suburban punctuality. But something was different. Lighter. Freer. Karen had vanished from every social circle she once ruled. She was a ghost behind lace curtains, her only remaining kingdom, the overpriced house she now hid inside like a disgraced monarch. But you don't get to wage war, lose, and expect the world to forget. There's always a price, and hers was still due. One morning, a nondescript white envelope landed on my porch. Inside was a folded piece of paper and a copy of an email. Anonymous. Saw what you did to the Queen. Thought you want this. She did it to me too, last year. Attached was an email thread between Karen and the towing company. Different name, different victim, same playbook. She had been targeting people long before me. Random cars she didn't like, people who parked like renters, even a teenager's beat-up pickup that lowered property value. She hadn't just misused her authority, she'd made a hobby out of it. And now I had the proof. So I forwarded it to the HOA, to the property management company, and, just for fun, to her insurance provider, since her illegal actions could be tied to property liability. Within a week, official letters started circulating. The management company issued a formal notice to all residents, detailing past HOA impersonation violations, plural. Karen's name wasn't mentioned, but everyone knew. And what the notice didn't say, the whispers filled in with ruthless accuracy. Turns out she'd authorized over a dozen tows without legal right, and since some were visitors or service providers, there were potential civil lawsuits incoming. But the real kicker? One of the victims had already filed a small claim suit for damages, citing harassment and improper vehicle seizure. Karen was being dragged into court. Publicly. A week before her court date, I happened to be raking leaves on a Saturday morning. Karen opened her front door and stood there for a moment, just watching me. Same bob haircut, same overpriced athleisure wear, but her face? Pale, gaunt. Not a trace of that old smugness, just brittle silence. She finally walked across the street, slowly, like each step cost her something. "Why?" she asked. Just that, nothing else. I looked up at her, leaning on the rake. "You started it," she swallowed. "You ruined me." "No, you did that. I just put up a mirror." She stood there a moment longer, then turned and walked away. Not another word. And that was better than any apology. Karen lost the civil case, settled out of court for an undisclosed amount, but word got out. Of course it did. This was suburbia. Soon after, a "for sale" sign popped up in her yard. Then came the She didn't say goodbye. No one threw her a going-away party. She left Stonebridge Glade the same way she had ruled it. Alone, entitled, and unloved. I kept my position on the HOA board for another year, just long enough to write some common-sense policies, prevent the rise of another Karen, and teach the neighborhood that leadership and control aren't the same thing. Then I stepped down, quietly. No drama, no smug farewell posts. Peace had returned, and I had no intention of becoming what I destroyed. Now, I park wherever the hell I want, and every time I pass by the spot Karen used to smirk from, I can't help but smile. Because I didn't just beat her. I outlived her power. And that's how you kill a queen.